I have to change this background pretty soon. Dynamic EQ is going to look a bit different. All right, welcome to evidence-based audio number 213. And this one, it's a question. Pyrrhic victory in the Loudness Wars. It's not a statement. I'm still thinking it's a question. Let's see. So I know I'm a bit late. It's been a few weeks since the last one. But things have been a little bit of struggle, but I'm starting to get some free time to actually do stuff. Actually doing a lot of mixing now, and mixing for real. And in my situation, sometimes I'm unable to send my mixes off to my normal mastering engineer, and I'm having to do alleged mastering, and I really hate that term. I hate. I don't know. It it seems to me that if the same person in the same room and same gear are doing the mixing as doing the mastering, you're just multiplying problems. You're not I don't know. I think there's such different disciplines. I have no doubt there's plenty of people who can do both, but I don't know that those people um, would do it on the same song. I don't think they would. But anyways, first of all, I'd love to know if you guys are using, if anybody out there is using these Evo SP8 mic preamps. I think because you can clock them with ADAT in, and according to the manual, and I don't know if this is right or not, but according to the manual, the word clock termination is switchable. You can switch it in the software or hardware or something, but you can switch the word clock termination. That alone makes me want to get 3 or 4 of these things and get rid of the Focusrite Octoprix Mark IIs that I have right now. I have a word clock. We've talked about it before. I have a word clock generator from 1999 or 98, an old Aardvark one, and the distribution system from that. I don't want to have to use this stuff. This terrifies me. I would much rather just, have something sensible. So I'm thinking about getting these. I don't have the money. I really don't have the money, but they would sure make my life easier. So is anybody using them? And if you are, I know this thing has some kind of like automatic gain thing. That sounds like a bad idea to me, but I seen it in action. They're saying it's okay. It still seems like a very bad idea to me. I think, if you're in there and they got a drummer hitting things, you tell them hit the hardest and whatever, but I'm pretty conservative on mic preamp levels. I'm not super worried about noise in the 24-bit digital world. But if you guys are using them, let me know, because this is kind of on the short list of mic preamps that I'd really like to deal with now. It's got 2 ADAT out, so it's no problem to feed both rooms with it. Right here. What is this? Generic? See, they call this an inner. Oh, no, it's not. So there's 2 optical outs and 2 optical ins. So you can clock this off of ADAT too. So you don't even need the word clock if you don't want. I don't know that I want to run ADAT cables that long, even though I am right now. I'm running a couple of them, but they still scare me. And, things can go bad real easy with that kind of stuff. So anyway, let me know if you guys are running these. And so the next thing is, speaking of moving stuff around between the rooms, you know what would be easier than a bunch of mic preamps with word clock would be networked audio, right? Dante or something like that. We gave Dante a try, did several shows about Dante. Never really... I understand its benefits for some applications. I think... I don't know, can I say this? Dante feels like a dongle to me. If you don't buy the hardware version of it, they lock certain latencies out. So you're required to stick another card into your computer, one that, you know, any card you stick in your computer is going to make more trouble, right? And now it has to have that Dante thing in it. I think with the RME, maybe you don't have to put another card. You just plug in theirs over USB or something. But you know what? How about you let us unlock all the different Dante latencies and see, because it seemed to me that adding those hardware cards, I used the Focusrite red one, wasn't cheap at all. It seemed like stability was awful, for one thing. Stability was horrible. We're getting dropouts all over the place. But latency was still bad. Like, it's still adding a layer of latency in there. And I'd love to try it out in software the way they meant. So there's also, let's see, there's Dante, there's AVB. That's the one that's on the Motu stuff. Let's see if they say about it. Motu and PreSonus are the two main adopters. Yamaha and Avid make some compatible products. I don't know. It still seems like these things are so old and still haven't really taken off. Maybe Dante's, a lot of people talk about Dante. The other one's like, so CobraNet. I don't think, does anybody use that anymore? Latency of 1.3 milliseconds and 64 channel. I don't think the latency of 1.3 milliseconds is a problem. Ether Sound. There's also like light snakes and things like that. The big bummer is like the X32s and stuff come with the AES 50 protocol, and that would be really handy if we could just buy those like Midas S32s or Behringer S32s or whatever they are, and just have those 32 channels of mic preamps right next to the drums out in the studio and just run an Ethernet cable all around. That's the dream, but the way it works, unfortunately, isn't quite that way. I keep thinking about trying one of those Lynx AES 32 cards, but it's just, man, by now that's more than 10 years ago as far as I know, and by now it should be so much more ubiquitous if that actually worked. And it seemed like there was it wasn't like you can stick it on a hub and distribute it that way. See what Sweetwater's talking about. So ANET, so it's Aviom. That was the old like headphone ones, right? I don't know if they're still people still making stuff for it. I think there was like for monitoring. So there's AVB. So there's a is there a RME AVB? AVB, Dante, and SoundGrid. SoundGrid. Actually, we want to get our plugins onto whatever that Waves thing is. I don't know if it's SoundGrid or not. It's for connecting digital mixing consoles to a Wave server running Waves plugins. Oh, that's not networked audio. Come on. So I don't know where we are. It seems like we're still nowhere with this stuff. And I would love to be able to just run audio over an Ethernet cable and be done with it. And if you guys have better experience with Dante, let me know. But mine was horrible. I was able to talk to one of the Dante developers or higher up, whatever, and he was cool, and it just didn't seem like Dante was right for my particular situation. Okay, Neural DSP has announced Archetype Tom Morello, so they've made another plugin. So I have so many problems with this. We talked about Neural DSP and their Quad Cortex several times on here, right? They had a lot of promises at launch. Most of them are still completely unfulfilled. It didn't really. I mean, it was cool. You know, I think the effects were pretty craptastic. They had weird things like reverb times and percentages instead of actual time. But the amp capturing seemed to work fine, and I mean that was cool for that. But for the price, I don't know. I'd just go buy. I mean, if you gotta have hat capturing, I'd probably honestly buy a Tone X and then whatever multi effects processor you wanted to go after that. It's probably gonna be an easier time for you. You know, they were promising getting their plugins into the hardware, and that never happened. And every time people ask about things, they either get kicked out of a forum, kicked out of Neural's Discord. I mean, this has just been a disaster and a train wreck. And it seems like every time people ask, instead of actually doing what they said they were going to do, they release another one of these incompatible plugins. So if you know the difference between something like Helix Native, where all of Line 6's products pretty much are in one plugin, and you just you stick it together like pedals. Every one of these neural things is like a different one. You can't really use them together. Sometimes they add some of the same types of pedals or whatever, but it's not an integrated suite like Amplitude, Guitar Rig, Overloud. You know, what do they make? THX or THU now, whatever. You know, or Helix Native, or even some Marshall guys one. I don't know if it's still around. There were a couple, but there's always just separate plugins, and really these should just all be in the same plugin. Come on. I know people say that the amp sims sound better than anybody else's. I don't know. I don't sound any better to me. The Tone X ones sound good. I don't really need these plugins, but it's just sad because they keep. Can I say breaking promises? It feels like they keep breaking promises. I don't know what. I know people have gotten some trouble over these guys. I don't know how much. I know getting Tom Morello as the next plugin thing is kind of controversial. I don't know. I'm not super huge fan, but yeah, I don't know. There you go. Neural DSP still doing what they were doing. All right. So the other thing I want to talk about, we were talking about mastering a little bit earlier. I'm having to master stuff now, and I have no idea where levels are supposed to be. I don't want to master. Like I say, I'm not a mastering engineer. I'm telling them this is a pseudo master. This is I don't like. To me, mastering my own mixes is like multiplying the issues and problems and mistakes. You know, it's the same ears, the same meathead that's doing it. Same room, pretty much same speakers. You know, I do try it in some other stuff, but I shouldn't be mastering this stuff. But in this case, in order to get this stuff out there, I have to in some cases. And so I don't know how loud to make it. I've watched several people so the loudness wars are supposed to be over because we have the Luft standard and EBUR 128, I think it was. But a lot of the guys I actually trust are telling me that as soon as loudness normalization is turned off, sensibly mastered songs are going to sound too quiet, which is always the fear of people. It's never been my fear as a mixer because it's going to the mastering guy, and that's his problem. But this is what they're saying. So, you know, YouTube's going to loudness normalize. Spotify, I think, is going to loudness normalize. I don't know if you can turn it off, but they're saying you still want to be way up there. And Streaky, I guess this one mastering guy, what's his, let me see what is it. Let me say his name. Streaky mastering. I don't know what's going to come up when I try and type this. Streaky mastering. This guy, I don't really know. I was watching him. I actually bought like a course on mastering and I watched him. It's actually kind of cool. I don't know. Kind of a showman. But he was saying that, and he's not the only one. He's saying that he goes right up to minus 0.1 dBFS for the ceiling rather than the -1 that a lot of people are saying. And he's saying he's aiming for like -9 to -8 LUFS. I mean, sheesh, that's pretty loud. I tried doing that, and actually sounded pretty much like everything else out there, so maybe he's on to something. Other people are saying -1. And more like, you know, the 14 or 12 LUFS or whatever. Right here is a page from I think, it's whatever the show that John Tidy's on with the mastering guy, uh, Ian Shepherd, I think is his name, and made this website where you can drop an audio file onto it, and it'll tell you how much it's going to be turned down by one of the streaming services or whatever. Let's try this. Let me grab something I've just been working on. So here's my fake master. I'm going to drop a WAV file up. Okay. It's crazy how fast the internet is now. Okay, so this is what's going to happen, allegedly. These guys are all going to turn it down by 4.7 dB. And Apple's going to turn it down by another 2 dB after that. And so as long as loudness normalization is on, whatever, I guess I'd be okay to have 4 to 6 decibels more dynamic swing in there and still it didn't sound that bad. I guess I'm just getting used to bricked, crushed audio maybe. But this what's really cool. This page will tell you what's going to happen to what you do, how much it's going to turn you down anyway. So probably the goal is to not have it turn you down at all, and you just hit it right into the right place. Anyway, so let's see what they say for mastering the mix. I don't know. But let's see. Mastering trends for 2023. Mastering the mix has done an in-depth technical analysis of the 25 most streamed songs on Spotify in 2022. And let's see. Harry Styles, what is that? See, I don't know what any of this stuff is. I think I heard a Bad Bunny recently. I'm not sure. Is there a tonal balance trend? Oh, it's just nice. So they've actually taken a picture and looked at what the EQ curves are pretty much. Interesting. So they're all pretty close to each other, within plus or minus 4 decibels. Interesting. I'm going to quote from the website. When you take into consideration all of the differences in genre, instrumentation, sound choice, vocalist ranges, etc., plus or minus 4 dB is actually a relatively small difference. It's not. I don't even think that's a relatively small difference. It's a tiny difference. That's very, kind of carbon Me Too-y. Let's see. The fact that these 25 songs are so sonically comparable shows that there is a ballpark range that you should be within. If your low end was outside this range, your track would sound weak and thin. If your high end was above this range, so I think they meant to say below. If your high end was above this range, your track should sound harsh and piercing. All right. I like that. So they're using reference and expose, which are actually made by the guy from the last page from Loudness Penalty. I think they're both from Ian Shepherd. I don't know what Mix Room is. Maybe that's from him too. I actually bought Met Reference. I don't really use it. I should, because it actually lets me play tracks the way Ozone won't let me. Oh, speaking of, anybody running Ozone, do you know how to make the reference tracks stick with the presets? Oh, it's such a pain. I forgot that I owned Reference. I'm going to start using that again because that just makes it way easier. Yeah, don't let me forget. Okay. So, what technical characteristics the most successful songs share? And here's loudness. Integrated LUFS is the overall loudness of the song. Closer numbers to 0, the louder the audio. And so here's non-normalized for the top 25 stream tracks of 2022. The average was minus 8.4 LUFS. So like I was saying, between 9 and 8, right? Loudest, loudest is minus 5.8 LUFS integrated as it was by Harry Styles. Wow, that sounds pain. Quietest was Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush. Is that a new song or is that an old song that people are streaming? Wow, so so if you're at a loudness normalize these things, you just look. This Harry Styles thing is just a brick. This this has got to be the 80s one, this Kate Bush thing. It's you see it actually moves all over the place. But so there you go, minus 8 to minus 9. I wonder where the ceiling's at, actually. Okay, so short term, it's a little trickier to use short term to me. I like the integrated. So what can we learn from the loudness data? Even though the volume wars are supposed to be over, it says major labels are mastering super loud. The quietest song was released in 1985. There you go. Long before the loudness wars were kicking off. Ironically, this is the only song in the top 25 that adheres to the advice that Spotify gives to optimize their masters for streaming. So I think that Spotify, let's see what they say for optimization. We adjust tracks to minus 14 dB LUFS. Well, there you go. Positive or negative gain compensation gets applied to track while it's playing. I think the negative gain just turns you down, doesn't actually compress. So let's see. Loudness normalization means we don't always play your track at the level it's mastered. Target the loudness level of your master at minus 14 dB integrated LUFS and keep it below 1 dB true peak max. This is best for lossy formats, and make sure no extra distortion is introduced in the transcoding process. So that's that -1 thing. But, you know, I don't know. Streaky was saying he's not noticed a problem. I don't know. If your master's louder than minus 14 dB integrated LUFS, make sure it stays below minus 2 dB true peak to avoid extra distortion. This is because louder tracks are more susceptible to extra distortion in the transcoding process. I wonder what we could try that out and see what they're doing. So that's what we're saying. Oops. You know, I should have just left that other one. So let's see what they're saying in 2023 on Reddit. And this could just be lame. I did give that God particle thing a try. I wasn't super impressed. Yeah, see, everybody's saying that it's probably going to go louder than that minus 14. All right, so I got a little bit more time, and my band's supposed to be practicing today, but I am sitting down and chilling. So there was, you know, I love these threads, and we've touched on some of these, but you know, more of these ones about separating you from your wallet. Let me read this one right here, because this is the first pain that I want to talk about. So this guy says, "Hey, this is quite personal, but my voice is not great. It's quite strong and hard to use delicately. I probably ruined my vocal cords due to constantly clearing my throat." But he wants to sing. So he's, for at least 10 years or more, I've tried to find a mic and a fitting mic pre to make my voice usable. Look, I don't know how many times we got to say it. This mic pre is not going to do it for you. That's not going to do you any good. Unless you got like some ancient, crappy, noisy, broken, distorted, garbage mic pre, it's not going to matter. And look at what this guy's gone through. My pre is at the moment an Apollo Twin X with a Neve preamp. V76 are clean. There's also a 610B, and I'm testing 88RS. I have had a vintage U87, a U87 AI, Black Spade U something, Shure KSM 44, Neumann TLM 102, Rode NT1, AKG 414, AT 4047, AT 4050, T-Bone Tube, Rode K2, Neumann TLM 103, and TLM 149. Some Austrian audio stuff, Fantone C12, 58, 57, 441. I don't see RE20 yet, but I'm sure it's in there. I've been quite despaired for a while now, and I also noticed that classic Neve sound on preamps stress to the same irritating frequency. Which classic Neve sound? I'd like to hear it. If you're really hearing something special on a Neve preamp, measure it. If it's there, it can be measured. I want to see it. And I know, yes, things have different frequency responses, and I wonder if that's what they're talking about, but it's pretty subtle. And it's not very consistent. I'm sorry to tell you guys, it really wasn't. We had Neve boards, man. Like it's not that consistent. The V76 was better, but the plain Apollo was also better. Your mic pre's aren't making a difference unless you're distorting the hell out of them, and then I still don't think it's going to make that much. And all these different mics, it's not, you know, it's nice to have good mics. They're more reliable, more polar patterns you can use. They're less noisy. Maybe they're clearer. maybe they have a curve that you like, but with this many tries on this many different types of mics and things like that, it's it's like it's not the mic. It's definitely not the mic preamp. And I really like, a lot of these guys are claiming all this nonsense, but let's say here's Kenny. You've owned or tested most of the standard mics available. The problem is not the mic. Look back to your voice as it sounds in the room and work on the stuff you don't like. Plus, accept the fact that your voice is what it is and start to appreciate different colors and nuances that all these great vocal mics can bring to the voice you have. Or no, just take care of get the sound you want coming out of your mouth, and it's going to be pretty close to the mic. It's sad because, most people are just going to tell this guy spend a lot more money. Luckily, in this one right here, people have talked different ways about dealing with plosives, or actually there's a pop filter thread where they're talking about dealing with plosives. But luckily they talked a couple ways about maybe some technique and thinking about things. What is it? So anyway, so it's like barking up the wrong tree. And it's like these guitar players that'll keep changing their pickups. And I'm so guilty of this stuff too. And then I end up with the same ones at the end. Okay, so here's something that I keep seeing a lot. I'm actually working with somebody who's doing this right now. The title is Frustrated Working with a Computer, Contemplating about Getting a Computerless Traditional Setup. Let's see. He's kind of got a word salad here. Or a screed. For quite some time, I've been roaming these forums unregistered. Blah, blah, blah. I consider myself an amateur musician. I have a day job that provides basic income. So he's not talking about getting rid of his computer and being an audio engineer for the living. At this moment, my studio resembles something that approximates the current modern home studio, a computer DAW base with an interface, 24 I/O, and a few pieces of analog outboard. I also have the Avid Artist controllers, a few instrument libraries, some hardware synths, and some acoustic instruments, and of course a couple of good quality microphones. So he's got some pretty good stuff. The issue, technically and in terms of audio quality, there is nothing wrong with this setup. When I'm composing, I'm quite happy with it, but I really don't enjoy working on a computer anymore. My day job consists of 75 to 90% computer work. It always feels like a burden to use the computer when I'm spending time on music. I feel very uninspired when staring at the computer monitor, and I also feel that the computer distracts me from working on the things I've set out to do. Man, preaching to the choir. And there are also the unlimited amounts of choices that come with modern DAWs, plugins, virtual instruments that make me feel lost sometimes. And yesterday on Adam Steele's stream, he was actually using some of our plugins. That was cool. People weren't really understanding just how bad you could get into analysis paralysis with all the modern tools, saying, don't give me mixed advice on the stream. But it's crazy because you do have so many choices and it can really hold you up. And let's see. There are also other major reasons why I would prefer a computerless, more analog, traditional studio setup. Some of them are quite philosophical in nature. If needed, I'll clarify them in upcoming posts. So he's been contemplating replacing the computer with an analog console, a hard disk recorder, a hardware sequencer. And, I see people who do this. That some old multi-track digital recorders. They're not that old, but, in digital years, they're very old. They still work. A lot of people still record to them. And some of them even have scripts so you can import them into Reaper, the files when you're done. The guy I'm working with right now records into one of those old modular, I don't know, what do you call them? It's like a hard disk recorders. It looks like the old Tascam Portastudio, the cassette kind, but it uses a hard drive instead. Then he dumps the tracks on the computer and sends them to me, and it works fine. And there was a kind of immediacy back in the day for me with the cassette 4-tracks or the analog reel-to-reels that you could just plug in and go. You didn't have to mess with the computer. Not so much on the professional end. Once you got to the 2-inch tape and stuff, really, I think you were you might actually take more time to set up than record on the computer, honestly. But I do understand getting hands on real faders and just pushing stuff around, and I think this is a perfectly viable thing, and it's probably controversial for me to say that, though I think it's viable. if you're doing this for a living, I don't think it's that good of an idea. I know there's people who are like insisting on analog stuff and whatever, but I don't think it's all that viable for that. But if it's something that you want to do at home as a musician, and especially, even if you're professionally recording stuff and you're just sending off the tracks, it's not an undoable thing. And then there's stuff like Radar, like that's meant to feel like a tape recorder, even though it's a hard drive, and you don't really have to do much with the computer, too much. You use the computer more like an auto locator, so it's doable. Okay, so let me a little bit of time here. Yeah. Okay, so which one? Kenny Bro, of course, is trying different cheap stuff, expensive stuff, and then getting people to vote on it. And you know how it goes. If people don't know what the gear is that's used on there, they don't know how they feel about it. But if they do know about which the gear is, they just pick the gear they like better. It's always funny when there's a big reveal. And let's see, this one's gotten to 12 threads. Let's see 12 pages. Let's see if they've done the reveal. So people like the second one better. I'm not sure when that happened. See, is there a reveal? Is there a reveal? Is there a reveal? Always do these before the reveal so you don't get influenced unduly. Yeah, I'm not sure if they actually did the reveal on here, but it just kills me because it's always once they know what the gear is, you can predict the results. But if they don't know, that's like the old mic preamp test where they end up picking the Art and the Mackie, right? And so we talked about this one before, the never-ending search for pixie dust, and does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. I mean, if it's so bad that it's distorted and noisy and horribly band limited and the frequencies are all messed up, sure, then it matters. But with any modern gear, it doesn't matter. Let's see. I think we read this before, parts of this. It says, like many here, I have a nice collection of top shelf gear, a mic collection that could pay for a new car, even more money in outboard, plenty of plugins, and let's not even talk about what I've spent on speakers, room treatment, and a ton of other stuff. I love it all. Still have a big list of gear I want to try. Always searching for that magical piece of gear that's going to make everything I produce sound better. It won't. Or at least fix whatever problem I had to fight on my last mix. But I have to admit, there are plenty of sub $200 mics that sound great, yes. The preamps and converters and those little 2, 4, 6, 8 channel audio interfaces sound just fine, yes. And every DAW out there comes with perfectly usable stock plugins for everything you really need. I don't know about that. Tuning, I still have some issues. I see that it's allegedly Cubase comes with a vocal tuner that's supposed to be pretty good. So he says, so what if you could use only stock plugins and an inexpensive interface and mics that were $200 or less? How big a difference would there be in the end product? Would the average listener even hear the difference? No, they wouldn't. My gut tells me in most cases, no, the average person wouldn't notice any difference. Or if he did, the people would be divided over which was better. In fact, we might even be divided, yeah. So why do we keep chasing magical gear? Let's face it, most end users are listening on crappy systems. I really believe the high-end gear gets me there faster, and I have no plans to give it up. Why do we keep searching for pixie dust? Are we fooling ourselves? If it's not broken, it's going to get you there faster. But see, we're on page 26 now, and there was so much apologetics in this thing. It was killing me. Let's see. Lately, I'd prefer to have more time to work on music to more gear, no matter how great the gear. Yes, and that is, like I always say about the ergonomics. Like I have everything out there set up so I can pop up very quick. I agree. So let's see. Okay, so this is the guy saying, it depends on the specificity of the sound the artist is after. For a lot of genres, there's quite a bit of specificity built on years of precedence you have to nail if you wish to be accepted by that genre's fan base. I don't know that that's about gear, though. As recent as the 2010s, and even today in some ways, particular equipment was required to get certain qualities of sound that define genres. In the 90s, the specific equipment was often essential. In the 90s, things were different. but I think even then we were starting to get into situations where a lot of things could do the job. And I'd like to know these examples of what this guy thinks are particular equipment that's required to get certain qualities of sound. Wonder what that is. Let's see if somebody actually. Yeah, there's certain keyboards or drum machines, fine, but you could do those with samples or whatever today. There's certain amps that have a certain sound, whatever, but it's not impossible to get it. Let's see. Where is? Yeah, I always say if the Beatles stuff was released today, as much as people say how great it sounds, today they would laugh at it. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see where his examples are of this stuff, but let's just say that 26 pages into this thing, and we're no closer to any real defense of the pixie dust, besides maybe, stuff that actually does matter. So, reliability, not being broken, modern sound quality, whatever. Well, I got to get ready for my band practice. So, I really want to talk to people about mastering. I don't know much about it because I don't do it, but I do want to know about some levels that you guys think where I should be. And if you have any tips, I bought Bob Katz's mastering book. I was reading it. I've been watching some videos I bought, and I watched regular YouTube videos, which I probably get more out of. But anyway, let me know about mastering, you guys who know, and I'll see you.